On this episode of Wild Talk, I sit down with Jesse Reardon from the Fishing with Dad show.
After COVID, I saw a big shift in my kids, their friends. It was suddenly normal to just negotiate to get my kids off screens. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, they're really missing out on their childhood.
His journey from childhood fishing trips led him to unforgettable adventures in the outdoors with some incredible, legendary mentors. Plus, in Tools of the Trade, we feature the Umarex Air Saber, air archery power with no strings attached. This is Wild Talk. Welcome to Wild Talk, the untamed voice of Canada's outdoors, where raw stories, real people, and wild places collide. This episode of Wild Talk is one for the books. Let's talk wild. Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting, Better Stories, Better Call Paul. Umarex, Hunt with Air. Bronc Beer, Great Buckin' Beer. All right, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Wild Talk. Spring is here. The lakes are ice-free for the most part. And we are going to jump into an exciting episode. I've been chatting with Jesse for, probably about a year or so now. We're finally able to put an episode of this together. He's always busy, always on the road, but we finally are hammering out some time. You may know his name from his adventures in the past, which we will get into, but Jesse Reardon, a huge thanks for joining me today and making time, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. It's I feel humbled, actually, and it's kind of coming full circle, but yeah, it's exciting.
It is, and we're going to get into your story a little bit later about to come in full circle. It's an interesting one, and I think our listeners and our viewers are going to absolutely love it. And they may not know the name right now, but they go, oh, that's where I know him from all those years ago, and some of the stories you've been a part of, some of the stories you've told, some of the stories that you will be telling in the future. So let's dive into who you are for our guests. I know you grew up as a Calgary kid.
Yeah,
but
25 years Calgary kid, yeah.
But your story really starts here on the water in BC, right? So what got you going there on the water in BC?
Well, that goes way back because, you think of childhood memories, and one of my first childhood memories was waking up on Salt Spring Island, actually. Okay. My dad was out here. He was a bit of we'll call him a botanist at the time. And he was, I woke up and Dave Plummer and my dad were fishing the lake every day. They were just hanging out fishing. And apparently Dave put a fish on my hook that he had caught while I was sleeping on the boat. And then they woke me up and I reeled this fish in. And I think from that day on, I was pretty much hooked. My dad wasn't really around, so I have a lot of good memories with my dad were fishing. And often if I'd get together with him on the weekend, or when I did get to see him, he'd find a way to just, take me to the lake and fish or stuff like that. So yeah, but there is one trip when I was 12 that really kind of changed things again for me too. So
that was my next one. I know there's a story about that. So let's dig into that. What sort of was that click? What was that change?
Well, again, city kid, right? Calgary, hockey and sports and stuff like that. I grew up playing that. But I used, Saturday morning, we used to have, back in the day, we used to have Saturday morning cartoons. But we'd also have Saturday morning fishing shows, right? Mm-hmm. So I tuned into the fishing shows. And then at 12 years old, I got invited to see my dad. He was out here driving double-decker buses. And him and Dave Plummer got me out on a couple boats, one out of Cowichan Bay and one out of Pedder Bay in Victoria. And it was always an adventure because, again, with my dad's buddies, it was, little kind of good old boys. I didn't learn a lot, but I definitely, on that trip, I was hooked officially. I thought, man, I got to make a fishing show one day. And my dad's buddy had a video camera. Now, there's footage somewhere of that trip. I used to watch it. I brought it back. I played on VHS and replay this trip of this fishing trip we did. And I always thought, it'd be cool to make a fishing show one day, but they're pretty boring. Not sure how that would ever happen, but it's something I always kind of thought of from that day on. So
that's pretty cool.
So it always stayed in the back of my head. And then fast forward to when I was 25.
You've come a long way, right? Like you kind of highlighted that your dad wasn't around, but then you kind of said that fishing was that connection with him. So those moments look like growing up? How did that kind of evolve?
Well, there's some pretty big moments, like the biggest fish I ever caught moment, the one that got away moment. There's a kind of a funny story there, but me and my brother were fishing on a weekend when my dad had us in Alberta, some Alberta lake, and I hooked this giant trout. Casting all day. My dad's not really teaching me anything. He's probably pounding the beers. I think he was, and I'm casting away, and I hooked this giant, and it gets away. But it's like the fight of my life, and I'm like, I think it was like 8 or 9. And then, anyways, at the end of the day, we're packing up, heading home, and I spot this giant fish uh, just at the shoreline. And my dad, being the guy he is, he's like, "Jake, get that fish, get that fish." So he hands my brother the net, and my brother goes and scoops him up. Which is, you're not allowed to do this. This is my dad's story, but this is what my dad was teaching me, life lessons.
Right,
I
right.
guess all the rules, guys. Trust me. But anyways, my brother scoops up this giant, and then that fish happened to have the lure of in its mouth that I lost earlier. So,
Cool.
and then my dad took it in. My dad claimed it at the local. I don't know. You could sign in and put what you caught, and it was like the world record
Yeah,
fish
the
for that.
derbies type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and he put my name on it. It was a 16.5 pound rainbow trout.
Wow.
But I'm like, Dad, I didn't catch it. And anyways, he's like, "Oh, I'm putting your name on there, and if they want to call me." I'm like, "Oh gosh, no." But it did get away, and then it was a good story. So moments like that, and then of course I used to go to Ontario as well every summer, and my grandpa lived there right on the lake, so I would snorkel, all day, and he'd always get me out fishing to like Thornbury and Owen Sound, and he'd just sit there, and like it's changed so much with screens these days, but he'd just sit there for 4 hours. I just fish bass all day, uh, worm and bobber. So those were good times with my grandpa as well.
Mhm.
And these are like, my grandpa and my dad, certainly men I respected at the end of the day, because now I'm a dad, and it's not easy
No,
raising boys.
no. Some of my fondest memories were chucking a line, right? And getting to
That's
know your friends, just like in Stand By Me, right? What's
Oh yeah,
that's my
wow.
yes, my favorite movie of all time, right?
It reminds you of your childhood.
Exactly, right? And you look at it now as an adult and you go, man, those little things I was doing, I didn't really realize were forming who I am today, 40 some odd years later, right? It's
Totally.
crazy.
And I see it in my kids now. Like that's a big reason for why I started the Fishing with Dad show.
Hmm.
Is after COVID, I saw a big shift in my kids, their friends. It was suddenly normal to just, don't go fishing when you have a fishing app, or, like it's suddenly I had to negotiate to get my kids off
Hmm.
screens almost in a sense after that. And I was like, this is crazy. Like they're really missing out on their childhood. And I even remember talking to a guy in Crofton. It was a big snowstorm. Like I'd always take the kids out on snowstorms. So I grew up in Calgary. You don't get a lot of snow on the island, and he looked around and there was no kids out. And he's like, when I was a kid, this place would be packed full of kids. They'd be snowmen,
Hmm.
and around there was no snowmen. There was no kids out. All kids are inside on their phones. So big part of Fishing with Dad is, to help these kids appreciate getting outside, hunting, fishing, being stewards of the
Yeah.
land, and just looking up to these men or women or that are taking care of you, and they want to teach you and hand something down. So that was a big part of it, and now I'm definitely over my head a bit, but
Part of the reason I got so involved with the outdoors a bunch of years ago is because I wanted to see that passing down and the preservation for the future generations, right? And it's
Mhm.
it's just so vitally important to you don't have to get involved much, but just think
Oh
about preservation for the future, right? Take a kid fishing is one of the best things I ever did, right? And I'm sure you're the same.
yeah, well, they just need outlets, kids, like besides screens, like seriously. I don't care if that's skateboarding, snowboarding,
Hmm.
hockey, soccer, a sport. You need that kind of for your mental
Yep.
health. And I mean, for hunting has become a really, like, come hunting season. I really love hunting blacktail because I get outside. It's discipline. It's hard work. You got to, you're exposed to elements and you're uncomfortable. There's a lot of elements about hunting that I really love. And then of course, Shockey Jim, he taught me about, the true value of hunting, and that's passing it down and being outdoors with the ones you love and being present. I learned the hard way, but I also learned the good way through Jim and all his guides and the outfitters and the guys we hunted with. Like, they're all stewards of the land.
Mm-hmm.
They love animals, and they take care of the land and the fish, and so they can hunt it and fish it.
Oh,
So
that's right. Yeah.
they don't hate animals because they're killing. So I've been down that path because I came in pretty mainstream too, right? I was like wanted to be in the outdoors, but just my family didn't do it, and yeah.
Yeah, like I know from chatting that you spent years building like a creative foundation behind you, right? Your school, your photography, your road trip across Canada. Like, what what were you chasing back then? Did you really know, or it was just a I need to do this?
I mean, I just hit it at the right, like 1999, and that's how I'm dating myself. I'm 47. It's just but it's just like I needed something. Again, I had that. My brother got a bit into video. Him and his friend used to make, when I used to go to Ontario, they used to make these funny videos. They used to actually do people's court.
Oh God.
They would record people's court, and then they would they would fake like the judge. And
Yeah.
anyways, I always thought that was hilarious. Then he made another couple of videos, and I went one winter. We made a Beastie Boys music video. I was like, "Hey, this is kind of cool."
man.
I did it to What You Want.
Yeah.
I had Cindy Crawford poster. Sorry, hun.
You're dating us real hard.
Oh, I know. So anyways, but right around that time, Max were just at the G3s, and it was all about multimedia. It was all about multimedia, get into media, and I always, I grew up watching a lot of TV, not a lot, but it was around, and I thought, yeah, maybe I'll take a little media course and get into this because I always liked that side of things, and I realized I couldn't really draw very well, but I could shoot, and I like telling stories. I was inspired by album art and see stuff like that, and yeah, so I needed a portfolio, and I'm like, Warren, we should do a road trip. My buddy Warren, I'm like, we should do a road trip to Montreal, where my dad is. Drive there, photo document it, drive back, then go to Vancouver Island with my buddy's band, document that, drive back, and then take all the photos, and I'll have a bit of a collection of photos to kind of build album art with for these guys, and then also create my portfolio. So I did that. It was a crazy trip. Lost fifth gear in like Winnipeg on the way to Montreal. Oh, no. Warren couldn't drive. It was just chaos. And then we went to Montreal. I worked with my uncle Barry, moving furniture on like Montreal moving July 1st. It's insane. It's like the worst. But anyways, drove back. The car stalled 186 times between Montreal and Winnipeg, and the max speed was 60K on the highway. Like, it was a 86 Volkswagen GTI. It was just shot. And we ended up getting towed back to Calgary, and then yeah, I hit the pavement with my portfolio, got a job with Fast Forward doing a page 4 photo at Fast Forward magazine in Calgary.
Right.
And then kind of was hustling. I hiked my portfolio all through downtown Calgary, and I got some bites. I got one good gig at Critical Mass, a job I always wanted. It was like a 6-week gig, and at the time my dad was starting to fade. He was like he was born with polio, a lot of pain, and he kind of in his later years got highly addicted to smoking and got into the pain meds. So I kind of wanted to come to the island. I was 25, always thought about coming here, and I thought, you know what, I should just go figure out my dad, see him in his last years, get to know him better. Dave Plummer was there. Dave Plummer can get us out fishing. I can just set up. I can always go back to Calgary, right? My friends were all 25. We weren't really all doing anything. It was a good time to just, when you're at the age, it's like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? Like, seriously, what am I doing? So I'm like, there's more important things. Like, my dad's dying, basically. I knew he was. And so I came out here. I landed a job at a t-shirt shop that I had landed in Calgary, and I had to go back actually when I moved here and to beg for my job at this t-shirt shop. I actually went back and was like, sorry, I didn't make you on time, blah, blah. Anyways, they gave me my job back. While I was there, Shockey's sidekick walked in, and he wanted jackets embroidered for his Rogue River outfit and territory spot in the Yukon. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And this Jim Bissett, his old sidekick, he really liked to talk. And he's like, oh, we got this show, and we're doing 13 shows, and we're going to Saskatchewan and Russia. And I'm like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. So right at the work, I had a business card with my portfolio on it, like a website at the time. I'm like, hey, take a look at this if you ever have a chance, and I'll take your card. And I don't know. And I reached out to the guy, and he didn't really get back to me. And then I reached out again. I'm like, did you ever look at my stuff? He's like, yeah, it was pretty good. I'm like, did you ever show Jim it? And he's like, no, but I'll get to that. And I'm like, okay. And then he invited me over to kind of give me an idea who Jim Shockey was. Oh gosh, because this is my first introduction to Hunter, and he looked like the Ultimate Warrior, like wrestling WWF.
Yep.
Like, just like I just saw his big game adventures, and it was like this guy with pretty much, we're gonna call it a mullet for Jim.
Oh yeah.
That mullet, and he's like this. I'm like, what the heck? And then I throw in the DVD, and Cody Robbins is editing and filming at the time, and it's just like, it was just like really cheesy 80s music to like this guy hunting caribou and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And and then Jim Bissonette handed me a camera. He's like, here, film my dog, and I'll pretend I'm hunting. And I'm like, okay. I'm filming over Jim's shoulder. He's like, so you got to cut the. I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. And then I just stayed on Jim, and Shockey liked my portfolio because Shockey's an artist, and he saw that I had an eye for telling stories with visuals, like pictures. And Jim Bissonette invited me to go to Saskatchewan to live with Cody Robbins for a month in his bed, in Cody's house, basically his bedroom, where his office was. Like his bed was here and Cody's office was here. And I had to learn and follow Cody for a month and see how I did.
The great folks over at Umarex have sent us up a few air rifles to play with, and this one, we have the Air Saber. It's one of the coolest things you've ever seen. It cranks these arrows out at over 460 feet per second. This tube right here holds over 3,500 PSI. Has rails on the bottom and the sides right here, so you can attach a bipod or a laser sight or what have you. Rail up top for scope. I chose to go with a red dot sight. Really nice ergonomic handle, feels really good in the hand. It's not heavy, super light. This is a great little air bow. Comes with 3 arrows from the factory, and you can get an optional scope and rings and bases right from Umarex. And remember, always safety first. Guys, don't use any other arrows other than the ones that come right from Umarex. You guys could get yourself seriously hurt or injure somebody else or yourselves if you're shooting a different type of arrow. These are specially designed and paired with the Air Saber. I can't wait to try this one out. I'm really excited. I really like archery, so this is super cool. I actually have a laser sight to put on the front of this. I haven't got around to it yet, but I went with a red dot sight instead of a scope, just because I wouldn't expect to be shooting anything over 40, 50 yards with this, but it does throw these arrows out at roughly 450 feet per second. So it's got a lot of stopping power. You end up, I think it's 20 shots with 1 charge of the tank for big game speeds and pressure. Then if you're gonna do predators, you can get about 30 shots out of it. So I'm gonna show you guys how to load this, and we're gonna take a few shots. So one of the things to remember too is if you're hunting big game, so if you're hunting deer or moose or elk, really important to check your local regulations and laws. They haven't caught up with the Air Saber or the Air Hammer quite yet, but you can use them in Canada and specifically in Alberta. Again, check your provincial laws, but you can use these for predators, for gophers, you can use them for coyotes, wild boars, anything that's not considered big game by regulation, they're perfectly fine. But the Air Saber, you can actually own without a possession acquisition license. Always super important to make sure you're being safe. When I load this, I always make sure that the bolt is back, safety's on, just for argument's sake. And never point this towards your face, always point it away. You just slide the arrow down on the internal tube here. Push it forward, and when you're ready to shoot, pop the safety off, and you are good to go. Holy smokes, that's fast. I love it. Get to shoot again. Okay, loaded. Bolt forward and down, safety off. We are ready to shoot.
That's quite a transition. You go from traveling across Canada, trying to build a portfolio, to working in a t-shirt shop, and then Shockey's guy comes in and you kind of make that connection. The funniest part to me, though, is you didn't even know who Jim was. Like, how did that conversation go?
Yeah, I honestly, he showed me a DVD, and I'm like, "That's the guy," because we didn't have like really internet. That's him. And do I have a DVD here? I might have one here. Oh, this is like 2008, Jim. We're talking like 2001. You can't really see it. That's hardcore. But
I may have even had that one.
Yeah, you do. Anyways, it was like the old big game hunter, but it just, I don't know. I was in shock personally. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I thought it was pretty cool. And I saw it as a huge opportunity. I actually remember sitting on that ferry heading to Saskatchewan, Jim Bissett, you ride the ferry at night.
Yep.
I was like, okay, man, this is, I know if I can start doing 13 shows or helping this guy, Cody, whoever the heck he is, do these shows, that we can take the 80s cheesiness out of this and do something pretty special with it. So,
that's incredible to me that you come from just that stroke of luck, wanting to get into that line of work, that career. And
I honestly don't know what I wanted to get into at the time. Like, it's crazy how had I not been there and met Jim, I don't even know what would happen with my life, honestly.
You started in a t-shirt shop, not knowing who he was, to doing damn near 20 years with him, wasn't it? 350 episodes?
Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. It is crazy. Hunted Adventures became my baby basically after season 2. I kind of took charge of that, and that freed Cody up. And then me and Cody we're splitting the trips, like Tanzania and Cameroon, and I remember I flipped for one trip with another cameraman for South Africa, and the other guy won, so he went to South Africa. But there's lots of things like that. But I was just, let's do it, let's go. I was ready to go. And then first trip to Tanzania. Oh yeah, we did a 45-day trip.
Oh man,
we did Spain, Turkey, Tanzania, and on that trip, my wife was pregnant with my first child, and in Tanzania, like, that was hardcore. Like, I'm like, hey Jim, what are we hunting here? And he's like, oh, like big 5. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, what? He's like, so lion, hippo,
elephants,
buffalo, and elephants. And it was it was a good learning experience for me. But that's where I almost died like 3 times in a sense. And I kind of thought, I don't know, like, I got to figure this out. Like, should I just focus on the shows and more North America stuff and let these young bucks just go with no kids, or should I, what should I do here? So I hit a bit of a crossroads around 2008, 2009 as to, should I keep traveling, or should I just like settle in? We're doing 26 shows a year at the time. It was insane. So I chose to settle in and, focus on like the Hal and Len stuff. Jim's father and father-in-law, and not die.
Yeah, you said there that you almost died 3 times. You can't leave us hanging on that. You got to at least elaborate on one.
We're hunting lion, and you get in there an hour before sunrise, and all I hear is this lion. As soon as the truck drove off, this lion was going crazy, right? Like roar, roar. Like, I don't know if you ever heard a lion roar live. No. It's pretty. But then the light was just starting to come out, and we could see the lion kind of by like where we're, Jim had his shooting window, right? And and then all of a sudden the lion just comes walking right up to our tent. Like, literally, it's like, oh, he's going to come right here. And it's like, do, and you're just seeing this like lion, like I'm looking right, I'm like, Jim's like, don't effing move. And Mike's like, that they both had their guns there, and I'm in the middle, and I just like hid behind my tripod, and I was like I couldn't not control myself from shaking. And that lion sniffed us out, and he's like plowing at the tent, and he's going, and doing all the crazy things for like which seemed like an eternity. And then it just ran off roaring, and then anyways, Shockey ended up getting it. But that was 5 minutes of terror. And it was
enough for me.
it's pretty powerful moment for me too. But I mean, it was 5 zippers away from, like, he just had to, like, literally it's a tent, like, and it was sniffing it out, like he knew we were there.
Wow.
And then there was a hippo charge, which the hippo charge got me pretty good because I hung back. Usually, sometimes you'll hang back and you'll have the guys, and you can just kind of compress the shot. So we were hunting hippos, and the main rule is don't get between land and water with hippos. Like, it's just a rule in Africa, apparently. And so I let these guys get ahead of me. I was nailing the shot of these birds, and the birds kind of fly off, and you can see Shockey and the guy kind of do this. And then I turned the camera off because I was on full zoom, and within seconds, like, this hippo comes charging out, almost takes out Jim and the PH, and of course the fourth guy in is right where that's where the hippo went, was where the cameraman would have been. Got that barely on camera, and that was intense because I should have been there. And then we had some pretty close calls with they were super aggressive in the rivers. Those hippos, like, they were just, and they'd show you their teeth, and they're like, yeah, come for a swim. It was like,
no thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I know you did a pretty kick-ass COVID Yukon trip. It's supposed to be 10 days, turned into 21. What happened there? Like, walk us through that one. Paint that story.
Yeah, well, you got to go back to, like, after Shockey bought that outfit, I was the first guy to go into Shockey's secret camp in 2005. Me and Shockey went in there with, I think, Steve Isdell, who does How to Hunt. He was another guide there. But, yeah, we basically set up that camp. Well, Shockey, I was digging, what do we call them, porta potty holes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had me for 3 days. We call it Shockey Boot Camp. I think we got in a week before the clients, and it was like Shockey Boot Camp.
Right.
And I got introduced to the Yukon hard, but we got that camp up and running, and that became Shockey's go-to camp it still is today. So in 2019, or COVID year 2020, Shockey couldn't bring clients in. So me, Wojo, Christian Anderson Davies, and Ryan Leaf, a bunch of guys, went up to the Yukon, and the plan was, Shockey's like, just 10 days, you'll be good. I'm like, yeah. It's kind of like my last hurrah. I probably won't do a lot more of these with you because it was hunting adventures that ended. We were just finishing up season 1 of Shock Therapy. And for me, I was like, I feel like I had to move on at some point, just because, long story, but because of just too much episodes. I was starting to get burnt out. I was at 350 episodes. I was like, I got to change it up. Anyways, got invited. The plan was 10 days. Wojo would get a caribou moose, Jim would get a caribou moose, grizzly if opportunity presented, and Jim would let me shoot my first mountain caribou. And in the end, he let me shoot my first mountain caribou. And yeah, that was pretty wild. Long story there, but I forgot my gun. Like, all these things I was forgetting. I was trying to film it at the same time, so I handed my camera to Christian Anderson Davies. We stalked up this big mountain. I got set up. It was like a 240-yard shot. As soon as I set up, man, the nerves kicked in because I was like, holy cow. It's like I've shot deer at this point, but I don't know. Maybe it was a moment with Shockey and all the guys there, but yeah. And then I took the safety off, and Shockey's like, okay, take it. I'm like, he's moving. And he's like, that's the wrong one. So I was on the wrong one for like a minute. Anyways, I set up, got on the right one. Shockey said shoot like 4 inches high. I think I shot 6 inches high, but I hit it just right. Got it a bit high in the back, and then it was just the one shot. It died within 5 minutes or so. But big moment, and for me, I kind of knew that was my last time for a while with Shockey at that camp or really any work. So it was kind of it was just like it was a gift from Shockey, to let me shoot that. And we did a Shock Therapy episode about it on how he, he got me in, right? He did. Him and Wojo, Matt App, lots of these guides, just legends, man. They're hardcore. Like, guys who grow up doing this stuff versus like the guys in their 30s or 40s that get into it from the city. Like, I'm learning, like, now I could be that guy in my 80s, but till then, it's just, yeah, so I just learned to really appreciate the art of hunting, like capturing it, but also the effort and time that goes into it, and the discomfort, and how important it is for our young ones to get off their screens and experience this.
Yeah, and it was shortly after that hunt that you stepped away completely. What was the defining factor that made you go, you know what, I'm done for a bit?
Well, I kind of, when Hunted Adventures ended, 17 seasons of Hunted Adventures, right? And for the last like 10 or so, it was 20 a year I was producing. And I just kind of felt a little bit of a burnout. And then we got into shock therapy. We kind of pitched that idea with the Outdoor Channel. It worked. So I did, with a bit of help, most of season 1 of shock therapy. And I just wanted, there's certain guys I wanted to do their episodes. Like I wanted to do the Todd Bissenden episode. I was hoping to do the Wojo episode. There's just like, out of respect for just how good they became and just their craft and what they taught me. So, but after season 1 of shock therapy, I just felt I was burning out and I just needed a change. And yeah, I remember writing an email to Jim and the team just saying, like, after I do Todd Bissen's part 4 of shock therapy, it's going to be my last Shockey episode for a while. Like, I'm probably not going to do it again.
How'd that go over?
That's a funny story. It went good. Like, you know, Shockey's was very good about it, and you know, everyone is very good about it. Shockey does have a song called "The Greener Grass." Yep. He's a musician, and I told him at the Hand and Man Museum. Anyways, it's right around lunchtime, and Shockey sits me down, and he's like looking at me, and he starts like rehearsing like poetry to me or something. Like he's almost like half singing it. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like singing me "The Grass is Always Greener on the Other Side" song to me. I'm like, oh gosh. So he sung me "The Grass is Always Greener on the Other Side" song in the Hand to Man Museum lunchroom. And I thought, yeah, it probably is. But, you know, sometimes at 20 years, you know, 10 years, you get a point, you hit a crossroads in life and you got to make changes sometimes and see what happens. So I decided to take a break. I got an offer at a really good media company. Same week, I got an offer from my buddy to help him start a steel fencing company. And I was like, okay, I could, yeah, I'll dig ditches for a year with Jeff, and yeah, let's do that. So I took a year off of media and literally dug ditches. And yeah, at points it felt like community service for sure, but it humbled me. It got me back outside. It got me in shape. Took the stress away of just mass producing shows. And that's where Matt Zanil called me up and wanted me to come help him film Man Eats Wild TV. I ended up going to do that for 3 trips to like Hawaii with Shane Dorian and Maracalpo. And I went with Chuck Liddell, Idaho Mountains for bear. And then I got to go to PEI and like do a tuna fishing trip.
Yeah, for 600 pounder or something.
So all those things kind of got me back thinking, okay, I can do this. I can get back into this.
You know? Can't stay away.
I couldn't stay away.
You almost went full circle, right? You started as trying to kind of break into the outdoors. You did a hell of a run for 20 years. You went away from it, and then you came back to tell your own story with the Fishing with Dad show. So how did that come about? Where did that idea come from?
Well, again, it stems from my dad and his fishing buddy, Dave Plummer. Because I came here on the West Coast when I was 12 years old, and those good old boys got me out of Petter Bay, and they got me out fishing, you know, caught first lingcod, first salmon, and we videoed that trip. I wish I had that footage. It's apparently died in a house fire. And I just, from that point on, and then when my dad was dying, when I moved here at 25, you know, Dave Plummer helped get him set up at this cabin. And the one thing I do with my dad for those last 7 years is Dave Plummer would say, okay, Jess, you want to go fishing? So I'm like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I can go fishing. Jim, like, you know, Jim, I was doing shows for Jim, and stuff. So if I had time, I could take off time and go fishing with my dad. and fishing with Plummer, and it was like a total relic boat. Plummer was making his own lead lures at his house from a mold, probably a couple molds from Canadian Tire. Yeah, but we were catching lingcod. We were never trolling with Scotties or anything. It was lingcod, flounder. And if we got home, that was good. If we broke down, Dave figured it out. A lot of swearing, a few Budweisers after at Dave's, fish fry. My dad would go home with fresh fish, just pumped. Like, it was some good times. And, those were the last 7 years with my dad that really, yeah. So it was just that draw and just that, whenever I went, I don't know, it just seems fishing was always the one thing that kind of would connect me to, just allow me to just calm down and unplug. And I don't know where I'm going with this. She can cut that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
But it's definitely just that, I don't know. Yeah.
And sometimes you never know, right? It's that draw that you just have to do something, right?
Well, when after COVID, it was really killed me that my kids and all their friends were so locked in on their devices, right? And I would have to negotiate to take my kids fishing, or take when I was a kid, you didn't have to negotiate to take me fishing.
I begged for it.
Yeah, you'd beg for it. So I just thought, and when I became a dad, I really wanted to get my kids out on the water, and I moved to the island. I'm like, I'm getting a boat, and I got like a little 12-foot aluminum, and it was like canoe tippy. It was horrible. Almost died. And I got a 14-foot line. Mm-hmm. And then my French buddies, he's like, hey, you need to sell that and get a Cadillac. And I got a 16.5 double eagle.
Yeah.
And me and my family rocked that, but I didn't have the downriggers. It was more like day trips to the water around Chemainus. And then I was introduced to Polier Pass. But again, I was just fishing like my dad and his buddy, which was basically bouncing lead off the bottom on reefs. So, but yeah, so I quickly realized once I had my own kids, I was like, I really don't know much about fishing. Like, all I know how to do is go out there and throw a lead lure on, mm-hmm. and out the bottom, and I can cast really good on it, from my childhood, because I used to cast a lot. But just I didn't fly fish, I'm like, I really don't know a lot about fishing. I'm getting in my 40s, and I really would love to learn more about fishing. And I've had this idea forever. And that's when I said, you know what, maybe I should look into pursuing this fish and show idea.
Personally, I'm excited to see this is finally come to fruition with Wild TV start airing in 2027, right? That's going to be so exciting. Like, you and I first connected probably about a year ago, and literally, it's been building, and I've been watching the journey on your social media as we finish this up, Jesse. Like, you've lived the absolute extreme side of the outdoors. Like, you've done it all with the Yukon, the Africa, life and death charges. So when you strip it all back to the core,
mm-hmm.
what do you find actually matters the most about the journey you've lived with it?
I think it's inspiring people to, when you're young, you have something in your heart, and you're like, I want to do that when I grow up, or I want to really try and do that. And then you get welcomed to the real world pretty hard from 18 to 25. Mm-hmm. And, those dreams can quickly get crushed. But I just think if it's in your heart, just pursue it and follow it, and just don't stop. And I'm only a year into this, or a couple of years into it, where I've heavily pursued it. And I wake up and today I'm like, what am I doing? This is crazy. And I need an actual job at this point to just, support this. I'm getting great sponsors coming on. I'm dealing with Suzuki today, which is super awesome. Suzuki's on board, but it's just craziness. But I'm like, no, this is just one day at a time, win each day. Can't control the past. I can't really control the future. I know if I just put my head down and keep doing this, it's going to give, it's going to take. And It's not about the money for me. I do need to make a living, and this last year has been a grind, man. Like, and it's happening though. And like Lifetimer Boats is on board, which is huge. Like, and Lifetimer Boats was like the boat shop when I moved to the island. It was down the road from where my dad was living. It's like the first cool West Coast boat shop I saw, and these Lifetimers that all these people talked about. And then I came across these wood reels, like Pete's reels,
The old Pete's. Wow.
Good old Pete's, but but people think these are relics, but this is like, it's a 100-year-old fishing company, and you can do the new drag system, and lots of guys on the West Coast wouldn't fish without these.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, it's like the original invention.
The old knuckle busters.
Yeah, and that's where that came from. And like, they're great reels. I just caught my first halibut at Winter Harbor with one, and it's like,
wow,
that was cool. It's a good moment. So I don't know. Just, what was the question?
What matters the most?
Oh, matters the most is, what, honestly, the connections you make out on the water, the connections you make on these hunting trips. Like, I've been on hunting trips with guys, they show up from the States. You don't know these guys from Adam. And on day 8, when they're leaving the Yukon, you're like in tears hugging these guys, and they become lifelong friends or contacts, right? And I just see how our young ones are they have so much pressure. They have so much influence by their phones now. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I was an 80s, 90s kid.
Yep.
And I feel like my kids are missing out.
Yep.
And they need an outlet. And I think a great outlet is the outdoors. I think it's hunting. I think it's fishing, if it's done right with respect. And you learn about being a steward of land, and you get to see these amazing creatures and animals, and you have these up close and personal encounters, like during the rut with a moose or a blacktail or anything. It's life changing. And then you look beside you, and who's there? Usually it's your dad or your grandpa or your son or someone you really love, your wife. There's some cherished moments out there, and I feel like a lot of our generation, younger kids, are missing out.
No, I think that's a brilliant way to close it, my friend. Like, I couldn't have said it better, right? I said years ago, probably 10 years ago at least now, on one of my first media interviews, when I was representing my local fishing game club, we were doing a fish release, and they said the same thing. They said, "Why are you doing it?" And I said, "We need to get kids. We need less Xbox, more tackle box." And it was just,
there you go.
It was like, yeah, that's what it's all about, right? As I mentioned earlier, quite blessed that my daughter wants to go fishing as much as she does. Yeah. You and I grew up in that era when we weren't getting a text message or an alert to say come home. We were come home when the lights are the lights on, the porch lights on, or the street lights are on, or whatever. So,
and if you had a pager, we probably shouldn't be hanging out with that guy.
Exactly. So anyway, man, where can somebody follow your journey on socials?
So right now we got the Fishing with Dad show on Instagram. That's doing really good. It's kind of blowing up. I've had the chance to go film with Big Water Guy, he's such a great character. Yeah. And so I'll be doing an episode on Big Water Guy as well. So the Fishing with Dad show, and then of course Salt Air Media Inc. That's my other Instagram, and we are going to get heavily into the YouTube content. Behind the scenes stuff and stuff like this, and leading up to the episodes. And yeah, I mean, it's chaos around here, but I'm doing it, man. Like, and I got some great friends and great people involved that are all willing and helping me out, and the support has been really good. Granted, I might have to sell my whatever to get it done, but it's, I'm in my wheelhouse. I just gotta get that boat on the water next week and get going.
Awesome, Jesse. Huge thanks for joining me today. Cannot wait to see the first episodes roll out.
I can't either, actually.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time on Wild Talk. Wild Talk, powered by Better Call Paul, is brought to you by Better Hunting, Better Stories, Better Call Paul. Umarex, Hunt with Air. Bronc Beer, great bucking beer.